Hi, this is Aslı Imre. I will walk you through Snowflake CLI installation and configuration. Let's begin with downloading binary installers from Snowflake's official repository. I'm downloading the Windows installers as I'm using Windows at the moment. All you have to do is to double-click on the installer and choose the directory where you want to install the CLI setup. Once the installation is completed, you can open the command prompt on your machine to configure the connections. So let's begin with configuring the connections. As you can see, Snowflake CLI is installed under the Program Files folder. Meanwhile, the configuration file that holds the connection configurations is located under the AppData folder. Here, by running snow connection list command on the command prompt, we can check the configured connections. As you can see, there are no configured connections in the config file yet. Then let's create a connection here as an example. I can create as many connections as I want and choose one of them as the default connection. To add a connection, I'm running snow connection add command. And as I run the command, Snowflake CLI requires me to fill in the connection details, as you can see on the screen. So let's fill in the connection details one by one. My first connection will be DataWix. Then I need to enter the account name. As you can see here, I need to get the organization name and the account name from my Snowflake account and concatenate them as an account name definition. Then I need to enter the definitions for user, password, warehouse, database, region, authenticator, private key file, basically the definitions you can see on the screen. You don't need to enter values for all of these definitions. Some of these definitions are optional. Actually, most of these definitions are optional. For example, private key file. If your user authentication is not based on an RSA public key, you don't need to enter a value for private key file area. Here, the user I use for DataWix connection configuration has password authentication, which means I don't need to enter any value for private key file definition. So the connection is created now, and we can see the DataWix connection as we run snow connection list command on the command line. Let's test the connection. Here you can see the connection status is OK, which means the connection has been configured successfully. As the first connection has been created successfully, I move on to the second connection. This connection will have RSA public key authentication, and I will name this connection DataWix test. You can see I've already created a user with RSA public key authentication and called this user test. All I want to do is to test this test user and see if it's working. I don't need to enter password here, as the user's authentication method is RSA public key authentication method. I'll also skip the optional definitions like role, warehouse, and the others, as my only purpose here is to test this user connection. So I will complete this connection configuration by defining authentication method and the location of my RSA key file. Authentication method for RSA public key authentications is Snowflake GVT. So I enter Snowflake GVT value to the authenticator definition. So I continue and enter the RSA key file location to the private key file definition. Let me find the file location. Here we go. You can see the data Twix test connection is configured successfully. And as I list the connections, I can see two connection names now. Finally, I'm setting data Twix connection as the default connection. And I'm running show databases command on the default connection to see if my database connection is successful and if I can return rows successfully when I run queries on the configured database connection. As you can see, everything looks good. If you have any questions, you can just comment on the comment line below. See you later.